Every community bears legends, some wrapped in nostalgia, others carved out of sorrow. This is the true story of Christy Wesselman, whose name became a symbol of heartbreak and endurance for Glen Ellyn, Illinois, for decades. Glen Ellyn, nestled in the heartland of Illinois, was the kind of place where doors went unlocked and neighbors looked out for each other. Its leafy streets buzzed with the laughter of children, and parents felt assured that their kids were safe wherever they roamed. It was here, on April 19, 1970, that Christy Wesselman began her life, a bright spark in a loving family that included her mother, 2 older brothers, and a younger sister. Christy flourished in the sheltered comfort of Glen Ellyn. She was agile, lively, and adored by her friends. Whether it was playing volleyball or softball, helping lead her class as vice president, or spending long afternoons exploring the neighborhood and nearby parks, Christy radiated joy. At her school, Christy's easygoing nature brought many friendships. Teachers admired her diligence and warmth. Her participation in summer classes and extracurricular activities made her a familiar face, brightening both the classroom and the sports field. The summer of 1985 glowed with promise for 15-year-old Christy, marked by her involvement in summer school and adventures with friends. A routine day turns dark. On July 21, 1985, Christy's day began like any other. After school, she strolled home, chatting with friends along the way. Once home, Christy decided to make a quick run to the local store, just a few blocks away, to buy a soda and a chocolate bar for herself and her mother. It was a routine so ordinary that no one could have imagined tragedy lurking nearby. Christy expected to be gone only a few minutes, and her mother anticipated her cheerful return almost immediately. But as time passed and the front door stayed shut, anxiety crept in. First, her mother supposed Christy might have bumped into friends and lost track of time. There were no cell phones back then, just patience and worry. As dusk settled over Glen Ellyn, concern turned to fear. Christy's mother dialed friends and neighbors, hoping someone had seen her. When those calls yielded nothing, she scoured the route herself, her footsteps echoing on empty sidewalks. There was no sign of Christy anywhere. Hours dragged by as her family swept the streets, their search increasingly desperate. By 1:50 a.m., hope shrank in the face of dread, and Christy's mother contacted the police. Thus began an investigation that would haunt the town for decades. The search begins. The Glen Ellyn police responded quickly, launching a search operation that combed both the familiar corners and hidden shadows of the suburb. Their first act was to reconstruct Christy's last known movements, starting with an interview of the store clerk who'd seen her just hours before. The clerk, a neighbor and former babysitter, had watched Christy enter the shop at around 4 p.m. She had greeted him with a carefree smile, bought chocolate bars, and left. She'd said nothing unusual or concerning, and appeared in high spirits. Other witnesses confirmed Christy's presence at the store, but none had noticed where she headed after, nor had they seen anything suspicious. Police canvassed the area, seeking anyone who might have crossed paths with Christy on her way home. Friends were contacted and eliminated as possibilities. None had met her that day. The investigation grew in size and urgency, but answers remained elusive. With daylight, a new team began retracing Christy's potential route to the shop, searching for clues missed in darkness. A fateful discovery. It was a detective's hunch that changed everything. Reasoning that local kids often took shortcuts adults rarely noticed, he followed a narrow trail through an overgrown field, a shortcut worn into the grass by countless young feet. As the detective pressed through the tangled summer growth, something caught his eye amid the swaying blades. A lifeless body, hidden, nearly invisible. It was Christy. Emergency teams arrived quickly, securing the area for forensic analysis. Medical examiners worked meticulously, but their findings offered little comfort. Christy had died from 8 stab wounds. There were marks indicating sexual assault, from which they collected biological evidence. Yet in 1985, DNA technology was only just emerging, years away from revolutionizing investigations. The collected sample was set aside for an uncertain future. Another detail added complexity. Christy's mother remembered her daughter wearing a distinctive pearl ring, but this ring was missing, neither found at the crime scene nor on Christy's body. Perhaps, detectives theorized, it had been taken by her killer as a macabre trophy. Despite exhaustive searches for footprints, belongings, or other traces, investigators came up empty-handed. Their best hope lay in the possible witnesses who might have seen Christy or her murderer near the field. Dead ends and despair. Police tracked down several people who had used the shortcut that day. Not one recalled seeing anything out of place, though Christy's body was found only yards off the path, hidden by the tall grass, obscured from casual view. Residents nearby had hosted a barbecue in their backyard, so close that the sounds of children and laughter mingled in the summer air. Yet none could recall hearing turmoil or shrieks. A gas station employee worked his entire shift without noticing anything unusual. The possibilities gnawed at investigators. Had Christy known her attacker? Was he a local, someone familiar enough for her to trust and remain silent? Or was she simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, crosshairs of a predator who slipped quietly out of sight? Police examined every man in the area who knew Christy. Each was investigated. Some pulled in for questioning and DNA sample requests. Suspects with violent histories were scrutinized, all to no avail. Weeks passed, then months, the agony of uncertainty weighing on Christy's loved ones and the entire town. Suspects, suspicion, and suffering. In 1988, a new development in forensic science gave investigators renewed hope. DNA testing had matured enough to be a tool in solving crimes. Police reviewed Christy's case and asked all previous suspects to provide DNA samples. Most cooperated. Their profiles did not match evidence found at the scene. One man, however, balked. Dana Henry, who lived near the shortcut and whose proximity to the scene made him an early suspect, refused to submit his DNA. Suspicion grew, and police secured a court order to compel compliance. Under immense pressure, Henry relented, but the ordeal broke him. He spent days in jail, lost his home to legal debts, and became ostracized in his community. When his DNA cleared him, Henry was released. The experience, however, branded him forever. He'd become Glen Ellyn's pariah, the man some still considered guilty despite proof to the contrary. Henry's lawsuit against the police went nowhere, and the wound never healed. A stranger's obsession. The investigation drifted until another strange figure entered the story. Willis, a local man, became obsessed with the case and Christy's family. For years, he bombarded them with supposed tips and theories, reaching out again and again until his behavior grew so disturbing that a judge issued a restraining order forbidding further contact. Police investigated Willis, combed through his accusations, and eventually dismissed him, another dead end in a case mired with shadows and regret. A case goes cold. The years blurred together. The evidence from Christy's murder was periodically uploaded to the FBI's database as technology improved, but each attempt yielded nothing. It was as if her killer had vanished into thin air. Detectives retired or moved on. New teams inherited old, fading files. For 3 decades, the Wesselman family waited. Sometimes they hoped, sometimes despaired. The mystery remained, a wound that refused to heal. DNA breakthrough, justice long delayed. Then, in 2015, a miracle of circumstance and science finally tipped the scales. The FBI notified Glen Ellyn investigators. A DNA match had been found. It belonged to 62-year-old Michael Jones, who lived in the town of Champaign, 150 miles away. Jones's DNA had recently entered the database after his arrest for domestic violence, a consequence of a progressive Illinois law that now required DNA samples from those accused of crimes. The legislation, championed by a state attorney whose own county was haunted by Christy's case, finally bore fruit decades later. When the DNA match pinged, investigators rushed to uncover details about Jones. Shockingly, Michael Jones's name had never appeared in the original case. Neither suspect, witness, nor neighbor. Jones was a phantom, his presence entirely unknown until the technology revealed him. Piecing together the past of a killer, investigators dug into Jones' history, finding a pattern of violence and manipulation. His first attack, in the mid-1970s, targeted a woman in a brutal assault. Jones managed to avoid serious consequences then, but just a year later, his crimes escalated. He assaulted a 27-year-old woman and left her abandoned in a hospital parking lot. When police closed in, Jones turned himself in but attempted sympathy, insisting that he respected the law and needed help for mental health challenges. Independent examinations disputed this, confirming he was fully aware of his actions. Nonetheless, Jones's remorseful facade resulted in a sentence lighter than many expected. He served just 6 years before release, 2 years before Christy's murder. The system failed to warn or protect Jones's previous victims regarding his release. One later expressed outrage that, had she known, she would have fought to keep him incarcerated. After his release, Jones married but continued to demonstrate disturbing behavior. His wife filed for divorce and secured a restraining order when Jones fixated unhealthily on a young relative. No criminal charges were filed for these actions. In 1999, Jones was arrested for assaulting a family member of his new girlfriend. Each incident added layers to a portrait of a man unchecked by the system, moving freely and causing harm wherever he went. Detectives learned that Jones frequently traveled alone by motorcycle, traversing routes that skirted Chicago and passed near Glen Ellyn, the perfect means for a stranger to appear and disappear without notice. Christy's fate, it seemed, was tied to a chance encounter with a passing predator. Even Christy's mother, contacted by police about the DNA match, was at first unmoved. It was routine. So many years had passed. So many inquiries had come and gone. But when investigators confirmed with fresh DNA evidence, the reality sunk in. Her daughter's killer, lost in the world for 30 years, had finally been found. Jones' former girlfriend provided further insight during the investigation. He was prone to sudden and violent fits of rage, obsessed with detective stories and crime shows on television. A man fascinated with mayhem and skilled at covering his tracks. On September 18, 2015, police officially charged Jones with the murder. He denied involvement, dragging out the legal process for 3 agonizing years. Eventually, faced with irrefutable DNA evidence, Jones pleaded guilty in exchange for a lighter sentence. The judge delivered an 80-year term, parole possible only after 2095, ensuring Jones would never walk free again. Justice and lingering shadows. For Christy's family, the closure came with mixed emotions. Gratitude for the resolution mingled with frustration and anger. If Jones had been kept in jail for his earlier convictions, Christy might never have been harmed. The justice system, slow to progress and inconsistent in enforcement, left wounds that would never fully heal. Dana Henry, the neighbor wrongly accused and hounded for years, attended Jones's trial, hoping for solace. Instead, he found only bitter memories. Despite being proven innocent, his life remained in ruins, and no apology or restitution ever came from the authorities responsible for his suffering. Legacy and reflection. The story of Christy Wesselman is a tapestry of innocence lost, of a family's agony explored through the passage of time and the relentless drive for closure that can outlast generations. It is an account of forensic progress, the limitations of law enforcement, and the human cost of justice delayed. Her case shaped legal reforms, a change in Illinois law that required DNA samples from suspects, inspired by the pain of her unsolved murder. It stands as a reminder of what communities must protect, not only their residents, but the integrity and responsiveness of the systems meant to safeguard them. As Glen Ellyn healed, scars remained. For those touched by Christy's story, lessons endure in vigilance, empathy, and the pursuit of truth, even when hope seems out of reach. If this story moved you, share your thoughts below. Like and support content that brings real stories to light. Christy's memory endures in every heart dedicated to justice. Thank you for watching and remembering.